All right, so we're here for round two of Coach's Corners, and we did a session last week, so appreciate all you guys coming, Tom, Steve, Jay. Thanks first off to Mike Tarosian and HCAM for making this possible. We're doing this, I work with the Historical Society, and we're doing this, we have an event December 7th and 8th, trying to get updates so that we can show folks, some of the things that have gone on, not just memorabilia, but, these talks are great for folks to have, especially, longer term. So thanks for taking the time to join us. So I'm going to ask some questions, roundtable discussion here, so don't hesitate to, just jump in. But I've got some basic things I want to get from you. So we'll start over here with Jay, and same questions for all. But tell us, Jay, that what sports and what teams have you coached, and for how long? And I know you got to leave a little early tonight because it's a special event going on.
Yeah. So our Unified basketball team is in our 7th season now, and for the second time, every 4 years, Special Olympics names a certain amount of schools in the country National Banner School, based on the work we do for inclusivity and kind of not just on the basketball court, but also within the school community and whatnot. And we were fortunate enough to win it back, it must have been in 2020, probably right before the pandemic. And then we won it again, we just found out at the start of this year. So we're playing Ashland. It's a special time at 5 o'clock tonight. So we're going to have a banner ceremony where Mr. Bishop and Chip Collins, my co-coach, and I will just say a few words. We'll have a little pregame ceremony, and then our athletes, who are our all-stars, like they're the best, they're our leaders. They're going to pull the curtain off the banner, we'll raise it up, and then we'll play Ashland, and then there's going to be a little reception for the kids after the game. Yeah, great. So I'm going to sneak out around 3:45 because I do have to help with setup a little bit, so I'll go do that. But glad to be here until then.
Great. So what teams, I think you've coached, is there a team you haven't coached?
Yeah, squash. Since I've been here, I started here in '99, and my first coaching job was I was hired by Coach Simos and Sue Beavers for baseball, and I also did basketball that year. Sue hired me to coach the 8th grade basketball team when Pat O'Brien was still our varsity coach, and then Pat stepped aside. It's amazing how the time goes. His kids were all young then, and now we've been working with Pat's son for about 10 years. He's great in our guidance department, and Tom took over in 2000. So I've actually been Tom's freshman coach for 25 straight years, which I always tell the same joke at the banquet. It just means I've never gotten a promotion. I've still been the freshman this whole time.
We both hired him?
Yeah.
Yes.
Big mistake. So this will be 26 years with the basketball program. With baseball, I've done a little bit of everything. I was the 8th grade coach my first year with Coach Simos, and then JV for 5 years. I was the varsity assistant for 6 years with Mark Stickney. Then I was the head varsity coach for 5 years, and then when Coach Simos came back, my kids were born and they were young, and so I stepped aside and started coaching the freshman team, which I still do. And then years and years ago, I helped out for a few years with football under Dave Hughes for 3 years, and for a few years with Garrett Sawyer with the soccer program back when I was younger and had
So you didn't do swimming and
no swimming in
well, soccer and basketball were not a whole lot of. I didn't do a whole lot there except take attendance probably, but and then we actually had the Unified basketball team was approved by the school committee 7 years ago as a fall sport. So I started doing that, and I've been doing that ever since the team was. So I've kind of done a little bit of everything.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's great. Thanks, Jay. Steve?
Kind of like slugs compared to him.
Yeah.
Jay could tell you mostly about what I've done because he has a better memory than I do.
It's not much.
I started in '92, so I've done varsity baseball, varsity football for 20 years combined, and then varsity softball for 5 years. So most football, baseball, and softball. So.
Great. Tom?
I got my first coaching job in Hopkinton as a sophomore in high school for Coach Bliss at Coach Bliss's summer camp. And then I got my first job at the high school as a freshman coach in 1996 after I graduated from Anna Maria. I spent 2 years as the freshman coach, and then I did a year of junior varsity basketball in Westboro, which is where I grew up.
Yeah.
And then I was hired in 2000, 2001 as the varsity coach. And I've continued in that role up until this year, which is hard to believe. That's like Coach Golden says, a long time. Sounds funny to say.
So almost 25 years or more involved from all three. That's great. That's great. So we'll go back now. Tom, tell us a little bit about your background in terms of high school, college career, your biggest influence, who that led you to play sports and coach, and what made you decide to coach.
So my biggest influence by far, I mentioned him already, is Coach Dick Bliss from Hopkinton, and
From Westboro. Right?
from Westboro, from West, actually just like me, from Westboro.
Be careful.
He's a Ranger.
Yeah, he's a Ranger. He's a Ranger.
He's a Hiller. He's a Hiller, but he's
a Hiller at heart, just like me. Just
Right,
like me.
right.
So I was from Westboro as well. But as I said, I went to Coach Bliss's camp when I was in 5th grade, 1983, and he was by far the biggest personality that I had ever met up until that time. And the thing about Coach Bliss is, and Jay can attest to it because he played for Coach Bliss. Coach Bliss could make the poorest player out on the court feel like a superstar, and he could make the superstar feel like you should be respecting everybody. So Coach Bliss by far was my biggest influence coaching. I knew that I wanted to grow up and teach and coach, and he was my role model, and he was my influence. As far as school, I played at Westboro High School for an old school coach, Dick LeDuc, who was an old school style coach that
Unlike you.
they couldn't. It is unlike me. These coaches couldn't exist anymore. They couldn't exist in this day and age. But I loved Coach LeDuc as well. Like Coach LeDuc was a huge influence on me. And then I played at Anna Maria College for another great coach named Paul Phillips. So those three guys were guys that I emulated and wanted to be like.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah, but I will just sidebar a little bit. I had Dick in gym. I think I was in the 5th grade.
Yeah.
So Dick's
So
was
I
around a
had
long
been
time.
in 5th and 6th grade, Elmwood for gym, and
Yeah.
we would do the presidential achievement award type fitness tests. And I still to this day can't do a pull-up if you can believe it. But you can believe it. But so Coach Bliss would grab your leg by the ankle and just kind of lift you up.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you got 6. So,
And what's great too
Yeah, he was
is, Coach Bliss would talk very highly of your father. So it's kind of like, I don't know, I see it as almost being passed down.
Yeah.
Like starting with your dad and then going down to Coach Bliss.
yeah, your
and
dad
then-
was the AD when I was playing for Coach Bliss, and then Coach Bliss actually took over
Yeah.
as athletic director after your dad, and he was coaching us in the AD
Yeah.
at the same time.
No, Blisser was
Yeah.
one of a kind.
One of a kind. That's right. They broke the mold.
Yep.
Yeah.
Steve?
I always say Tom's my favorite coach here because he's the
Oh,
only
jeez.
remnant of old school coaching we have.
Yeah.
He's hanging on as long as we can. My biggest influence was my high school coach and my grammar school, elementary school coach, who was like a second father to me. So my high school coach was a history teacher.
This was you were in
Connecticut, in West Haven.
West Haven, yeah.
Notre Dame. And he was my football defensive coordinator and my head baseball coach. But he was
And what was his name again? I know.
Tom Marcucci.
Yeah.
He's a legend. He's a two-sport Hall of Famer in Connecticut. And very similarly, he made everybody value life lessons, but he was very old school. he could survive about an hour.
Grab the
hour
helm,
and a half.
grab the face mask.
Oh, easily grab the face mask, yeah. But he was a high school history teacher. He brought the classroom to life. He was, he just made every practice interesting and fun and challenged you, and it was tremendous.
Yeah, that's great.
So,
And you played, what sports did you play there?
in high school, I played football, baseball, and hockey.
Hockey, okay.
And in college, I just played baseball
At BC.
at Boston College. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so I start off with my father. He was his high school history teacher for a few years, and then he switched into the business world. But he also coached me when I was like little, obviously in elementary school. And he was former president of Hopkinton Little League and was very big. He coached basketball as well too, so he was big into coaching youth athletics. And so through that influence, I knew from an early age I wanted to teach and coach. And then when I got to Hopkinton High School, I was incredibly fortunate because I don't want to make his head too big, but my greatest influence is to my right here, Coach Simos. He came in when I was in 10th grade, and it just made sense to me. That's what I want to do. And I was also very fortunate to be able to play for Coach Bliss, like Tom mentioned. My senior year, I broke my arm about 5 games into my senior season in the Brown gym. And ironically enough, the police officer on duty who took care of me when my arm was like this was Pat O'Brien, who had hired me about 7 years later as a coach. But Coach Bliss, like Tom said, he makes anyone feel like $1 million. And so he had me involved, and he had me helping with preparation for the games and putting together notes on the other teams. And so I actually, for a lot of that senior season, when I could have been down in the dumps because I couldn't play, it was so worthwhile to me because I was not only with my friends, but he kind of showed me what goes into the preparation and whatnot. It was very eye-opening, and it was a great experience. But really, being able to play for him, and like I said, Coach Simos, he was one of the last people to say goodbye to my father when my father was read his last rites on hospice care in my house. And so if that tells you right there what a special place Hopkinton is, because we've had so many coaches similar to Coach Simons and to Tom and to so many others that are not only coaches to the kids, but really become part of your family, and so it's a really special thing. And so I feel really fortunate to have been able to, kind of grow up and be under their wing when I was much younger.
Great. And you played basketball and baseball?
Yeah, I played basketball and baseball here. When I was in college, I played intramural basketball and baseball at University of Delaware because I was not a Division I athlete, or Division II or III, but they have intramurals.
You're not alone there.
So
You're not alone there, Jay. So.
Yeah, so that was my the extent of my college career.
Good.
Jay's mom was my first parental complaint.
Yes. So
For
keep
why
the family
you
thing
kept
going.
him, or?
no.
No, well, he can.
So I was a sophomore, and back then it was like they had third graders playing varsity because we had 5 kids in the school. But so it was I was a sophomore, and Coach Simos called everybody in one at a time to let them know what team they're going to be on. And my brother was a freshman, and at the time my brother went on to play at Princeton, he played Division I, and he was very good.
Very good.
He
was pretty good.
Yeah, I was very mediocre, but at the time I thought I was better than him. So my brother comes out of this meeting with Coach Simos, and he's like, I made varsity. I'm like, oh, me too then, this is great. My younger brother made varsity. And I went in and he said, JV. And I was like, oh, okay. But I went to JV, and then I guess my mom,
You're in the right spot. You're in the right
well, he moved me up. He moved me up after a week or so later. But,
She threatened me.
but yeah, so that was, but I did move up. I got most improved player that year.
Yep,
So there you go.
no comment.
I was gonna say, we're just going to let that.
There's nowhere to go but up.
Oh, God. All right, so Jay, tell us about your most memorable coaching moments, be it teams, players, events, things that, experiences that you've had, or any of the above.
There's so many that, that relate to, the games themselves, and so many of them relate to just, the times you spend with the team and with your fellow coaches, like away from the court or away from the field. I feel really fortunate. I'm a special education teacher. That's what I've been doing here for 26 years. And to be able to coach the unified basketball team, like when we go down for our game, it's such an extension of the classroom. It's just seeing those kids out there, the look on our players' face every time they make a basket. It's never not priceless. It's a fantastic feeling. So that's big for me. Just all the memories I have of, it's been fantastic, like winning championships, like TBL titles and a state title, and playing in the Garden twice with Tom. Those always stand out, and those are special because the kids work so hard to achieve what they do on the field. But really, it's the interactions with the kids, away from the field, away from the court, and really the times I've spent with these guys, especially because I've been on a staff with them for forever. Yeah, we could go on and on telling stories about, fun stuff that had nothing to do with even basketball.
Please, go right ahead. You can jump into any that you'd like, Jay.
God, I
Those
guess-
We are on
I don't know where
TV,
to
so
start.
some of it
I
may
don't know
not
where to
be.
start. I do remember Tom. My first year when I was coaching the freshman team, he had met my dad. Tom was over at my house for dinner because I was living at my parents' house still when I was very young, and we had dinner at my parents' house on like a Tuesday, and then on a Friday, my dad's watching my freshman game in the afternoon, and Tom came to watch, and he sits down and he sits with my dad for the whole game. I'm like, oh, they fast friends right there, right? Turns out the entire time Tom thought he was one of the referees, and he was like buttering him up for the varsity game. And then afterwards, he's like, yeah, I'm talking to that ref over there. And then I realized after about an hour that it was your dad.
Yeah.
But just like funny stuff like that, you know, the relationship you build.
I gave you great advice after your blowout loss at Dover Sherborne. Gave you great advice.
So we lost
first time.
Yeah, my first year
Yeah.
coaching our Tom, we lost to Dover Sherburne. It was probably like 98-12 or something. And I'm like,
Had
it was
a
like,
few of those
it was like, yeah, it was like my third game, and I'm like, oh man, I'm in big trouble now. Like, Tom comes over and he had his, and he comes over and I'm like, oh man, what do I say to this guy? Like, he's gonna think I'm like, I can't coach, I don't know what I'm doing. And they had a kid on their team. They had their last names on the back of the jerseys. They had a kid whose name was it Wolfman?
Yeah.
Wolfman or something. And Tom's like, you should have wolfed out like Teen Wolf. If you had a wolf on your team, you would have won.
Yeah, I said you
and I'm
needed a
like,
Teen
all right,
Wolf.
this guy doesn't care too much that my team lost, so that's good. He's not going to kick me out after losing by 86 points.
Yeah.
My thoughts are mostly about the losses. Those are the most memorable thing. We're lucky to coach in with the two sports, 4 state championship games. But I remember the final loss of his career. It was
Westport.
in Westport. Just talking to my assistant coaches about how I felt that the program had arrived because they cared so much, crying and just the investment. Where a couple of years earlier, just being in that game would have been a miracle. Just to think about some of those losses, and
Faced a future major league pitcher that day.
we did. We faced a future
Who-
MLB star, Alan Leverall, pitched for the Brewers. I think. Yeah.
Brewers and Marlins, yeah.
So, and we led that game overnight, 1-0
Yeah.
for, it was like the 5th inning. And it's another golden story, actually, because the skies opened up and we led 1-0 against an undefeated team and came back, and they had bases loaded, and our pitcher, Brian Libby, wanted to continue the next day, and he was going to face their star hitter. And ultimately, I should have gone to
Me?
not you. Jay's brother, Jeff, we said I told Brian Libby he could have this guy, and he struck him out. And then I put Jeff in for the 6th inning and gave up 7 runs, and we lost. So I still have ill feelings towards the family for that.
How about on softball? I know just you, as you said, you coached football, baseball, but also on the girls' side, softball.
Yeah, softball was
How was that different in
every way.
every way?
Yeah. It was fantastic, though. I
Yeah.
loved those 5 years. I guess the way people explained it to me, and then it came to be true, is that when you're coaching, you would never have done this, but if you're getting on a team,
Yeah.
yelling,
No,
no,
don't do that.
some of us. If you get on a team, every boy thinks that you're talking about the guy next to him. Every girl assumes you're talking to them, and I learned that right away. They took it very personally. So that was good. It was easier to reach them, and they would do anything if they trusted you, if they believed that you had their best interest and you knew what was going on. Those are great 5 years, and they made it to the Eastern Mass Championship as well. Had some great teams. So that was a real memorable portion of my career.
Great.
Yeah.
And I know you've got the the soft, sensitive
Yeah.
type. Just hearing from everything, Tom. I know
Yeah.
I've seen you coach something.
He's softened over the years. He
I
has.
have.
He
There's
definitely
no-
has.
Oh,
He
you have to.
definitely has,
There's
yeah.
no question.
I would
No
say,
choice.
yeah.
Yeah, you got no choice.
Yep.
Yeah, there's no question about that. But as far as memories, like Coach Golden was saying, there's so many wonderful families and so many wonderful kids that I've been able to coach over the years. Things that really stick out would be the first year when we went to the Garden. Right away we played in the Division IV state finals together, and we had Red Auerbach sitting at the end of our bench, and it kind of ties together with the Historical Society because a lot of people don't realize that, a son of Hopkinton was the founder of the Boston Celtics,
right.
essentially, Walter Brown.
Right.
I remember Hopkinton community members would come walking up to Red Auerbach and they were asking him, we're building a new high school gymnasium because we had closed out the Brown gym,
Right.
which even that kids don't understand. It's named after Walter
Right,
Brown.
right.
And Red Auerbach said, well, they should name it after him. Is what he told the community members. So it's something like that sticks
Sure.
with me. And I think back to Coach was talking a little bit about besides basketball. When I went through a bout with colon cancer in 2020, and Jay and some of our assistant coaches at the time and my wife arranged for a lot of my former players to come back and meet me as like a tunnel, like at the door when I came out for the game.
great.
So
Wow.
that's something that I'll never ever
Yeah.
forget. And we all went out to start line right after the game and talked about old times
Yeah.
and stories that you forget.
Sure.
And I just told my wife, like, when I retire, I don't need any retirement party because it's probably the best. It's the best night of my career, just
awesome.
talking to all those guys again, and just to know that so many people, do care, and
Yeah.
I care for them too,
Yeah.
So.
That's great.
People don't realize how awesome those games at Brown Gym were.
Oh, the best,
Yeah.
the best.
So exciting.
Yeah.
We have this big, beautiful gym, but
Right. Oh,
That
that first year.
tournament game, we played Hull in the first round.
Yeah.
And, remember a couple of, they were literally, because the bench is like along the wall there, and then there's that back door, and I know some of your friends are banging on the door trying to get in because they shut the gym down. They
Right.
wouldn't let anyone else in because it was a fire hazard. I
Yeah.
think we snuck your friends in the back door.
Yeah, yeah.
So they could get in and watch the game.
And
But
the
it was
noise would just bounce
oh my
off
gosh.
that wall, and
Yeah.
it was
And,
unreal.
and such a special team, like the talent and,
Yeah.
and the character on that team too. Like some of the kids, like Sean Kane, Robbie Taylor, Sean Howland. Like it was just, like it was awesome basketball too.
Right.
On top of a great atmosphere. So we thought every year was gonna we go to the Garden every year.
But again, when I was in the classroom before I went to health and PE, like I was part of the third grade curriculum was history of Hopkinton. So I would try to teach them about Walter Brown
Yeah.
and how much. I mean, is someone from Hopkinton who is in the Basketball Hall of Fame and is in the hockey Hall of Fame.
yeah.
It's unbelievable,
Right, right.
And sometimes I would talk to old timers, and they would tell me stories about how they would go to the Garden, they would ask for Walter Brown, and if the Ice Capades were on, all they'd have to do is say, "I'm from Hopkinton," and he would come down and give them front row tickets to the Ice Capades. You know what I mean? It's like things like that kids don't
And
realize
he
or
used
talk
to
about.
get a team at the end of season, team banquets. He'd get Celtics to come and
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's
actually
amazing.
talk and
Yeah.
come to the
So-
gym.
Yeah.
and,
I mean, as the basketball coach in town, like I've been I think about that a lot, and I try to talk to the kids about it, but they still don't know. Even sadly, Doyle Gym,
Yeah.
you talk to them about it, it gets lost a little bit.
And that, frankly, that's why we want to do this, because
Right.
it's important that people understand what
Yeah.
you all have done and the
Right.
other coaches and
Right.
the history there.
Right. It was like so in 2017, my family won a contest for the Celtics, and Jason Tatum came to my house. But they gave me the shirt, the Celtics jersey with the number 1 on it.
Yeah.
The first thing I said was, this is Walter Brown's number
Yeah.
because it's Walter Brown's retired number in the Garden. So it's funny how things just come around in full circle.
So speaking of coming around, you have an interesting, because you teach at the, what
Second
grade
and
level?
third, yeah,
Second and
elementary
third.
school, yeah.
So I'm sure you've coached plenty of kids that you had.
Yes.
So
Yep.
talk about
Yeah.
that, because you see kids,
Yeah.
7,
Yeah.
8 years old.
Absolutely, yeah, and I get to see him out at recess time. I get to see him playing basketball outside, and we run the PTO after school clinics, and they come to the clinics, and then we see him at basketball camp every summer, and it's fantastic to see him. And once they get to the high school, having a chance to coach him,
Yeah.
like even former staff members like Coach Greco, who coaches the girls. We were coaching them through the camps, and Coach Sanborn, who's the football
Yeah,
coach.
yeah.
So even just to have these like Hopkinton guys that are coming back as coaches is really wonderful to see. But it's definitely a different perspective to see them when they're 7 and 8,
Yeah.
and by the time they're 16, 17, 18.
Yeah.
And then of course when I'm walking through the halls, everybody's saying hi to me. Do you remember me? I'm gonna say you remember them all.
That's one of the things I'm most proud of as a coach, how many coaches there are that played, Jay and Mark. And,
It's so nice.
so many former students and athletes are coaching and teaching here.
Yeah, in the last few years, there's been
Yeah.
quite a few brought back, right?
It's just
Absolutely.
nice that they
Yeah,
want to
a
come
lot.
back here.
Right.
That they saw the value in the sport.
Yeah,
I think
still-
the kids
Right.
need to, if they could ever know the amount of energy that guys like this put into their well-being. It's
Guys
behind the
like
scenes.
this, you're
When we're talking about it, we say, old school, young school, and all that stuff, but how many conversations we had about kids who played basketball, baseball, what makes him tick, what do you think with them?
Right.
Worrying about their well-being, not just,
Yeah.
whether they're filling it up or not
Yeah.
Yeah.
on a Friday night.
Yeah, and that's something that, we've always been able to go to Steve about anything, at all. He's been such a great someone to bounce ideas off of, even outside of just your sport, how to handle different situations with the kids and with the parents, So, I mean, Steve's been a fantastic resource ever since I started coaching.
Well, he's the dean of coaches.
He is.
right?
That happened fast.
So does that, and I think you guys have pretty much been here, but what do you hear from other schools? Like you're saying you can rely on people kind of inside.
Yeah.
What do you hear from other schools? Do they have that same type of relationship, or
Yeah.
is that unique to Hopkinton, or?
I know on the basketball side it's unique. The first thing that other coaches tell me when I get there to any school to play them is like, wow, you've had your staff intact for so long.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe that you don't have the same turnover, Like we said, Jay
incredible.
and I have been together for the whole 25 years.
We even had Jim Chambliss was our JV coach for like 5 years, Greco for about 10 years.
Long time.
Chris Banks has been on our staff now for over 10 years. So,
Yeah.
And Mike Greco is now, he's the
girls' varsity
coach.
coach.
He's been the girls' coach.
So he was our
quite a
JV
while.
coach for about 10 years,
Long
and then he got
time.
the girls' job in like 2015, I want to say,
Right.
around there. So close to 10 years.
So we've been lucky to
Yeah.
have the continuity on the basketball side of things,
Baseball too.
Same,
We've
yeah.
had Jay, we have Mark Sanborn.
Mark Stickney.
Mark
and-
Stickney.
Yeah.
So-
Should-
Now Matt Anderson. Yeah.
Matt, yeah.
Matt, who
Yeah.
played for me.
And I even found, I was joking with Clark, I think it was last season, I still, because I'm old school too, I keep like hard copies of all the letters of recommendation I've written over the years. I just have this big file. And I was looking for one, it must have been last season, and I found the letter I wrote for Mark for college, and it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it's just so it kind of all comes full circle, because he's been on our staff for close to, actually more than 10 years now. So it's been, it's been nice for sure, because you build those relationships, you had them as kids, and then all of a sudden they're your colleagues, and it's just the relationship changes, but it doesn't change. So it's pretty nice.
If you ever go to Jay's classroom, he's got every picture of every team he's ever coached. So it's like a
Full
museum.
wallpaper
Except for
now.
COVID.
I was going to say, so
Museum.
all the
Museum.
walls are
Yeah.
covered, or what?
It's like a museum, yeah.
We weren't allowed to take pictures during COVID, but otherwise, but yeah.
So how many roughly is that?
I counted 64 teams, but it's a lot of it was at a younger age when it was like literally so he was the offensive coordinator for Coach Hughes with football, and I was helping Garrett Sawyer with soccer. They needed a JV coach. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. No idea what I'm doing, but sure, I'll do it. And then Coach Simons came to me and was like, hey, we just need somebody else for the football staff, for the sub-varsity staff. I know you never played, but I can teach you some drills. We just, we need to have an adult, responsible adult, kind of help out, this and that. I was like, sure, I'll help out. And then you retired like a week later, and I was like, what do I do? But
I had to get him in.
but I was able to, I did 3 years of football. And really, I watched the Patriots on Sundays, and that's about the extent of it. But I learned so much in those 3 years coaching under Coach Hughes. From everything. I learned way more about football than I ever dreamed I would have. Because obviously Coach Hughes is, the legend. But so much. I mean, he was my 8th grade science teacher, right? And so I learned so. I knew I would learn a lot from him, but just so much about just like life in general and like dealing with different situations that has nothing to do with football. So, at a young age, I was like, any opportunity I can get, I'm not going to turn down. And now I feel so fortunate I did that because I take pride in being able to like be at a football game on a Friday night and look up and it says David Hughes Stadium, and I can say that I had the opportunity to coach under him, and I was one of his students, and so it's a cool thing.
Good. Dave actually played for my dad when my dad was one of the coaches, so it does come kind of
Yeah.
full circle. So.
Your dad hired me,
There you go.
and I coached for Coach Hughes for
Yeah.
16, 17 years. I was the offensive coordinator. He allowed me to throw a pass in 1998. Other than that, it was 36
You
pounds.
let AJ throw the fair
Yeah, we
amount,
let
so
him.
every once in a while.
But it was obviously just seeing how he related to the kids. And the great thing about, for me, with Coach Bliss and Coach Hughes was the love of the town.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was new to me. It was just a place I thought I was just stopping in.
Yeah.
Um,
How's that shortstop
Yeah,
going, Steve?
that's not, it's 33 years later, and it's been home. So,
Yeah.
but they had that passion for the town and how they could relate to the kids, and loved. I mean, they loved the kids, but they loved wearing that uniform, and it was incredible.
Yeah, I heard a great story, historical society related, but with Blisser and some of the Shalowskis and some of the things he would do after practice, just to kind of
Oh, yeah.
talk and help him along with things. And
Yeah.
that to me is like, wow.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
those are things that you just don't see and hear.
Yeah.
But it's like to have an impact. And this was somebody whose son, I think, played football, but wasn't,
Sure.
it was just like, wow. So
Yeah. I mean, Coach was all about handwritten. Coach was
Oh
all
my
about
gosh,
handwritten
yeah,
notes.
yeah.
Like, he would write everybody a handwritten note,
Yeah.
and again, it was.
Yeah.
I still have some.
Yeah,
you know,
I do too.
I've got a
I
note from him
Yeah.
asking me to come coach
Yeah.
at the Hopkinton
Yeah.
basketball camp that we still run. you
I'll
know?
never forget. I was in awe. I mentioned that I had the opportunity when I broke my arm to kind of like he made me a part of like his preparation for the games and stuff, and it was a great experience. And again, this is it's 30 years ago, so I think we had typewriters probably or something or word processors, but everything was by hand. And he used to Coach Bliss would actually you should take notes on this. He used to put out the TVL updates notes that he would photocopy and give out to the fans, and it would be all handwritten, like exquisite handwriting, and it would be the TVL standings and the top 10 leading scorers and the top 10 teams with defensive points against, all and just written out beautifully. And it took him forever. He wrote it all up by hand, copied it, and I would hand them out at the game, so the fans would have like it was almost like a program.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was old school, but it was awesome.
My original superintendent that I worked under was Bill Hosmer.
Yeah.
You might remember
Yeah.
that I'm 26, 27 years old coaching a game, and then Monday morning in my mailbox I'd have a handwritten note,
Yeah.
very specific about something I said to a kid in the third inning.
Yep.
Proud of what you're doing with
Yeah.
these boys, and it was like meant a lot.
And that's
You know,
means a lot. Yeah.
it was personal and obvious that he had observed what was going on. It was great, and that leadership.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go get ready for our
All right,
game.
good
so,
luck.
all right,
Good luck.
good talking to you guys.
Thanks, Jay.
Pleasure's always
Thanks a lot.
been.
Yeah.
Definitely good.
Nice blazer. Nice tie.
Jay showed us up again, as usual. I think you guys have probably answered a lot of this last question, but we can expand on it a little bit more. What do you enjoy most about coaching and coaching at Hopkinton in particular? I think you've talked a lot about it, but see if there's any.
Well, it's definitely relationships, but the coaching relationship. I had never coached basketball in my life. I was a hockey guy, but I probably went out with Coach Bliss after almost all of the games my first few years. I would go to those games and we'd go out after his games, and it got me so excited about coaching to see how invested these guys were.
Yeah.
And what I could do, the impact I could have. Football, Saturday mornings, looking at film, bringing in the donuts, getting yelled at by coach. It was just that stuff behind the scenes is fantastic. I talked to Matt Anderson last night, just getting ready to plan for the season, for the upcoming spring season, sitting in my classroom coming up with new ideas, keeps everything fresh. It's the relationships.
Mhm.
And I obviously, I would say my highlight of my entire career was I got to coach my son. So
Yeah. Who was pretty good,
Yeah.
pretty good.
it was a good-
All-state athlete in 2 sports.
so that was,
Did okay for
that was
himself.
fun, which I know, we never thought that would work out well, but it did.
That's great.
Yeah, just like Steve says, it's the relationships that are formed.
So speaking of one relation, sorry to cut you
No,
off,
go
but the Scotty Mack and
Yeah,
that
oh my
whole-
God, yeah.
you know, this-
It's too
this-
bad Jay left, because the things
Yeah,
that Coach
exactly,
Golden does with
Scott,
and for
yeah.
Scotty's, he's a
Scotty's
saint.
been our head coach for years.
Yeah, it's exactly. Scotty's been there the longest. There's
Yep.
no question about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, Scotty's fantastic, and like I started like Steve, 26 years old when I first started coaching, and then through coaching, getting married, having kids. Like my own kids, every single year have a favorite hitter. Like every single
yeah.
time. I mean, they come to all the games.
Yeah.
They come to practices. Like when they were younger, they came to practices.
Yeah.
And every single year they had somebody who was their favorite player, and it wasn't always the best player.
Yeah.
But it was this guy was my favorite, and they'll tell me about him at home, and then they'd always ask about that kid. Like.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's neat.
So I mean, that's special to me. I think of an example that I've talked about with my team a lot recently would be a player I had last year named Sam Pantera, who's on to college.
Mhm.
So both of my twin sons who are in 8th grade ended up being diagnosed with a progressive genetic disease in their eyes. And Sam Pantera also had eye difficulties.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, when they found that out, I mean, that was it. Like, Sam was their man
Yeah.
till the end of time.
Good man to have.
Yeah, and Sam would still, write him encouraging notes, talk to him
Oh,
all the
that's
time, trying to tell him about upcoming surgeries at Children's and things like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just one example, but
Yeah.
and there's so many over the years with having those types of relationships with players and player families that that's what I think about. And then
Tom would probably agree. We talk about the games, but it's the practice and the meetings.
oh, it's always the practices. I love
I would.
practices. I love
wouldn't care
practices.
if we ever played. I really wouldn't care if we ever played. I love our meetings in here,
Right.
our pre-practice, and
Yeah.
and just executing in the field, and that's where you can build. Because
Yeah.
everybody's the same in practice. There's that. It's all about your work ethic, and
Right.
you don't have to deal with superstardom and the lack of a start. Everybody's the same.
Right.
And it's just that's where your relationships are built.
So you guys have played just little other areas. So you played at Fenway. Your teams played at Fenway Park.
Yeah.
You guys played in the Garden.
Yeah, we played in the Garden a couple times.
I mean-
yeah, both times I kissed the leprechaun.
Oh, yeah?
Court, yeah. Both times walked out.
You
kissed
didn't
the
stomp
leprechaun.
on it? You didn't
I
stomp
did
on it
not.
like somebody else?
Yeah,
We
so
played at Cooperstown.
That's right.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So ours would just be like the big games were always in UMass Boston
UMass,
or
yeah.
WPI, Clark, those types of venues. But that's awesome. Cooperstown sounds like super fun.
And I took my teams.
You went to Cooperstown for quite a while, right?
Yeah.
A number of years, I know.
I tried to make it so every kid would graduate. I would go
It's awesome.
until the rules on chaperoning became a little stringent.
Mhm.
And then
Sure.
I took my teams back to where I played in high school. Played
Oh, that's
against
right,
my
yeah,
high
that's
school,
right.
went to Connecticut.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
it's that full circle family thing. That's where
Yeah.
my roots were, and for them to see, the more they know about us as people, the better as well.
Yeah.
And that was always fun.
That's neat. You were telling me, Steve, separately, when you played at BC, you played with Rich Hill's older brother, right?
Yeah,
Um,
he was my roommate.
And so, and then you were just telling me about some of the guys that played in the baseball team that played professionally. How about you, Tom? Any guys that you played with in college, or I'm sure in the years that you went,
Yeah.
have you experienced with people who've, besides Red
Yeah.
Auerbach,
No,
sitting at
no,
the end,
no.
sitting at the end of
Yeah,
your
yeah,
bench? I mean,
yeah.
which is pretty
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
legendary.
Yeah, we actually had another playoff game at Newton North, and Tommy Heinsohn was sitting behind our bench, which was something else because
Oh,
his
really?
son was playing at grandson was playing at Milford at the time. But as
Tommy
far
Heinsohn's grandson.
yeah, he was playing for Milford High School. Yeah, so that was kind of
Wow.
cool. But I mean, as far as who players we've had guys that are playing mostly Division threes. We had one the first year, Sean King,
Sean,
who
right.
played
Played
and
at
played a little
Furman,
bit of
right?
Division One,
Mm.
right? But the one team that I had that went up against a lot of great players would be that 2011 team with Barrett Hanlon and Jake Doucette and Will Relly. Those guys, they played Jake Lehman, who was Mr. Basketball in Massachusetts,
Oh, that's right, yeah.
his junior year and his senior year. He ended up playing at Maryland, and then he ended up playing for the Trailblazers
Yeah,
and the Lakers.
yeah.
So that was something else. Just
He was from
he played at King Philip,
King, that's-
which I give him all the credit in the world
You
because
beat them.
yeah, we beat him 2 times, two
Wow.
years in a row, which was nice. But I give that kid all the credit in the world because instead of going to a prep like everybody else, he wanted to stay
Stay with his
with his
brothers,
friends
yeah.
and his family. He had brothers on the team. But beating him as a junior when he was Mr. Basketball, and then we went down there the second year when he was a senior, and they were ready for us the second year. And they were all fans were all lathered up, expecting to win. And we weren't as talented that year, but we beat them again back-to-back years. So just playing against somebody like that,
Yeah.
who you see later on
right.
on
right.
TV with LeBron James, is just mind-boggling.
Right.
And another kid that we beat that year was a kid from Stoughton who ended up. His name was Aaron Calixte, and he ended up replacing Trey Young at Oklahoma.
Oh.
So it was a good run there. Danny Ainge's son at Wellesley.
Yeah.
It was a good run in that tournament of really high-level players
Yeah,
that we
yeah.
ended up beating. We beat every one of them, which was just a nice memory, and it's
Yeah.
a good memory for the kids.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I ever said this to Tom, but Barrett Hanlon, no disrespect to all my athletes, but one of my favorite, if not my favorite athlete at Hopkins.
Yeah, he's great.
That game brought me to tears, literally brought me to tears. His
Yeah.
performance, he kind of put the team on his shoulder.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
the way he carried himself humbly.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very humble
Performance
kid,
was
Yeah.
was unbelievable.
Yeah,
And
his
I-
senior year, when I don't know if that's the one you're talking about or his junior year, but junior year was UMass Boston, and he had a great performance. Senior year, he got 3 fouls in the first half,
Yeah.
and I left him in. And everybody came up to me after, and they said, "Oh, what a good job leaving him in." What were you thinking? I said, "I didn't have any other choice. I had no other choice. The game would have been over if I took him out. The game was over. But I had to
Just
keep
lost
playing.
earlier.
I had to keep playing him,
Yeah.
And like you said, he carried us.
Yeah.
He carried us. He was a phenomenal
That's what
player.
I'm
saying.
Yeah,
Great,
just a great
kid,
player. Yeah.
How about kids that you played against, Steve? Because I know you guys played state championship games. I mean, there must be some kids that ended up playing
lot.
in the pros, yeah? That you guys beat?
Yeah. Well, we have a major leaguer right now, Danny Merzell.
Dan Rizzo,
Right,
yeah.
so we have a major,
That's right.
we have a major league umpire.
Who's umping quite a few games. I mean, he's
Full
in
schedule.
the regular, yeah.
Full schedule.
Which is-
And one of my players at Holy Cross is the pitching coach of the Yankees,
Yeah, which,
Matt Blake. So he was just an average left-handed pitcher, and I was the pitching coach of the Yankees. He went from Lincoln Sudbury to the New York Yankees.
Yeah.
I'm still here with Tom.
and loving it though, right?
Yeah. Alex Reynolds, who didn't play very long, he was just hired last week to be a pitching coach for the Red Sox, single-A Salem team. So definitely got coaching. Coaching.
yeah.
Coaching.
And there's a lot of
Yeah.
players. We had, just a couple of years ago, we had 11 players at one time playing in college.
You know what's
So we played a lot.
cool about like what you're saying too is sometimes it's not even like your best player that ends up
Yeah.
going far. Like one of my favorite players, Ellis Spar. He was like maybe the 11th or 12th man on a
Yes.
very good team. But same thing like Jay was saying with Coach Bliss, I would let Ellis like go over film in the film room with the players
Yeah.
because he was so into it. He went to USC as a manager, and then now he's a graduate assistant at Providence College.
Oh, wow.
And he was riding the duck boats at the Celtics parade
Yeah.
because he's friends with a Celtics player, Peterson, who's on a two-way contract, you know.
Oh, wow.
So sometimes it's kids like that, you know. Jason Hicks is the manager at the University of
Yeah.
Miami, you know, like he was my manager, so.
Jack
it's good.
Breslin.
So it's not always just the players.
Manager,
Yeah,
D1 manager.
it's not always just the players. It's the people that stay
Oh,
involved that you need, you know, in the program that are also doing great things after.
I talked
Hopkins
to
High
Ellis, he's
School.
friends with Bronny.
Oh, that's yeah, because he was there too.
Oh, really?
That's awesome.
Jeez.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
Speaks highly of him.
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes it's not the players, you know. Sometimes it's the,
So these
the other
guys
kids.
were even just managed, not
Yeah,
just, but they were
Jason. Well,
managed.
yeah, Jason Hicks was my manager, and he's like I said, he was on TV during the NCAA tournament because one of the Miami players blew out his sneaker. They had Jason sprinting on CBS. They had him sprinting to the locker room to go get the sneakers.
Oh,
and
that's
sprint
too
back.
funny. Oh, I saw
yeah.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
This is also a kid who used to just have he would do our scorebook, but he'd also have a Bill's pizza right on his lap during the whole game. Be eating pizza the whole time.
That's free advertising.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah. But I mean, those are kids too. Like we're talking about relationships. It's not always the players, you know. So the other kids that are helping you out that
Yeah.
make a big difference.
I started to hold interviews for managers because we wanted to value it. The managers have been instrumental.
You did
Yeah.
that for years, right?
Yeah.
With baseball, I remember.
Yeah, and just really
Younger
ask them a
kids.
question, have them craft their role a little bit because their roles, you don't want them carrying equipment.
Make sure they're not eating pizzas on the
Exactly.
table.
We don't want that either. So, yeah, and a lot of people associated with the programs over the years.
Great. Well, really appreciate your time
Thank you so much.
and discussion here. This has been great.
All right.
And thanks again, Mike and HCAM.
Thank you.
Take care.